Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Stephanie. This is week number 3, January the 12th through the 18th weekly wrap up. Okie dokie, so as I do every single week, I will give you guys my last week's reads, which was 7, even though I kind of got into a book slump. I'll explain that in a second. And then I will give you what I'm currently reading. Everything is timestamped down in the description box, as well as affiliate links. All my social media stuff is down there. Just check out the description box for more information for these videos. So last week I did read 7 books, but that's because I read 4 of them yesterday on Saturday. I got put into a reading slump by one of these books where I just didn't want to read. It was so hard for me to like pick up another book or to actually DNF this book, and I was just like, oh. But the good thing about that is that I started binging The Circle on Netflix, and that is what I do when I like start to feel slumpy, or I don't feel like I want to read a little bit, or I don't want to read at all, is I'll go to Netflix and find new shows. So everyone had been talking about the Cheer show over on Netflix and the ice skating show and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, let me go over, and I had every intention of watching the Cheer show, but I fell down the rabbit hole of what is called The Circle over there. It's a social experience where they put these people in this hotel or in this building, and they have no contact with each other except for through this social media program called The Circle. It was so good. So good. I binged that in 2 days. And then I went on to check out this show called Soundtrack, and wow. So I really want to watch Zoe's Playlist for Life, I think it is, or something like that. That's on network television. But this show is probably the exact same thing. So Soundtrack is this storyline where you have this guy, he is a songwriter, and he believes that every single song is a love song, and it is so good. The songs that are included are absolutely amazing. So just to give you guys a little taste of what it actually is like, one of the very first scenes, one of our female actresses has a breakup with her boyfriend, and as he is breaking up with her, you see the things that are going on in her head. And the song that they picked was Elastic Heart by Sia. I absolutely adore that song, like love that song, and you get to see her feelings through that song, through dance, and as it was going on. He's not really part of the scene, I guess you could say, but you're feeling her emotions through that song. It's so good. It's so good. I'm probably explaining it all kinds of messed up, but go check out those 2 shows. So let's get into what I did read last week. And yeah. So last week I started the week finishing Before You by Marni Mann. I placed this in contemporary. I give it 4.5 stars. I give it 3 Steam fans. I read it as an audiobook. There is content warning for grief and PTSD in this story. This story follows Honey and Andrew, Billy and Jared, and you sort of get to figure out how they're all connected. They are connected through one story, and it's just beautiful. There was a moment where I had to go back once again for a Marni Mann story and listen to certain parts over and over again until it finally clicked, and I was just like here for it. So Honey and Andrew are a couple that have issues with pregnancy, and Jared and Billy are a couple of individuals that are involved in an emergency plane landing, which is the PTSD sort of side of it. And there's that trauma dealing with we almost crashed in a plane and could have not lived. And you're seeing both sides of those stories, and there's an age gap within Billy and Jared, and it's so good. It was so very good. Just so moving. And even though I was a little off kilter for most of the story, and didn't know exactly what was going on and how I was supposed to feel about where they connected and how it was all going to come together. Overall, I ended up loving this, even with all of the mystery and, twistedness that came along with it. It's such a beautiful story. The next book that I read was A Question of Us by Mary Jane Baker. I placed this in romantic rom-com. I DNF this at 15%. I'm not giving it any ratings. This is one of those rare moments that I'm not going to give any star ratings whatsoever for this one. This was a NetGalley arc, and I placed my other feelings about this story in my NetGalley vlog that you guys are going to see later on this week. But it was so just not, no, it didn't work for me. So you have Clary, Simon, Sunny, and Gemma, and I think there's a whole slew of other characters. They are all part of this pub trivia team and group, and they see their interactions and stuff like that. For one, it felt like you were just kind of thrown into this situation and you didn't have any reference whatsoever. And then there were pages upon pages upon pages simply about one event for the pub trivia night. So like one night covered like chapters. I was like, what? It made no sense. And then the British slang, come to find out, because I was like, there's slang in it, but I didn't know which country in Europe that it was coming from. I wasn't sure if it was Irish slang or if it was English slang. After reading some of the other reviews and stuff like that, I found out it's British slang, and there was just too much. Too much. It just didn't work for me. Didn't work. I'm all for, having a story set not in the United States and in different countries and stuff like that. And I'm fine with having European slang, English slang, British slang, and Irish slang, and Scottish slang, or, things like that. But it needs to be sprinkled in there, I guess, a little differently, and this did not work for me. Okay, so the next book is the book that did it. It put me in a slump. It's Love Lettering by Kate Clayborn. I placed this in contemporary / women's fic, probably more women's fic than anything. I give it 2 stars. I give it 1.5 Steam fans. I read it as an arc. This book was just flippin' boring, and I feel bad saying that because it got so much praise on book Twitter, on Facebook. So many of my favorite authors were hyping this book, and I think the premise was a good premise, but the execution just did not work for me. So we have Meg, who is a letter writer. She does things, she's like an expert calligraphist, I think that's how you say it. But she is all about letters and fonts and the swoop and the swope, and she just loves everything letters. And it got overwhelming. I mean, yeah, it's lovely, it's fun, it's something different. You don't read too much about someone's love for letters all that often, but they started spelling things throughout the entire story, and it got really boring because it was all in Meg's voice. The male character, Reed, he is a guy that she wrote a wedding program for, but in that wedding program she put a message in there telling him that his marriage was a mistake. So then when he comes back a year later and confronts her about it, it's like, oops, I got caught. And then she just, like, by 60% or so, she became this whiny female character that I just didn't want to know anything about. Everything was wrong with her life, and that's why she was the way she was. We never really got to know Reed on anything but a surface level, I guess you could say. There is, like, an appearance of his parents at some point, or his mom and his family and stuff like that, but it wasn't, like, substantive. It didn't really add anything to the story, and the sex scene was not very sexy. It was kind of mediocre. I mean, yeah. So there's that. Now I'm in a reading slump at this point because it took me like 3 days to read this book, and I would pick it up and then I would put it down, and so I watched those Netflix shows. Friday comes along, finally. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. No. Saturday comes along. And I'm like, let's get into it. I'm gonna buckle down. I have to get my Read Me Romance novel listened to. So that was The Neighbor by Brighton Walsh. Place this in a rom-com novella. Gave it 4 stars. Gave it 4 Steam fans. Listen to it on the podcast of Read Me Romance. Read Me Romance. Read Me Romance. Who, by the way, is starting their 5th season next week. Yay! Congratulations, guys. Love it, love it, love it. And this was just what I needed to get me out of that sort of funk of, having a bad story. Put me in a bad mood. So this story follows Lucy, who has a bad day, and all she wants to do is make some damn cupcakes. But she doesn't have any sugar. So she has to go to her neighbors. And which neighbor does she knock on the door of that finally answers her? His name is Matt. He opens the door in a towel. Yes. And in a towel, fresh from a shower, and she talks about his cock. So then Matt ends up getting Lucy to come back over, and they have a little insta-lust going on, and I was so here for it. I love that it was insta-lust and not insta-love, but it made it all the more fun. It was superb. It was just what I needed. And the things that Tessa Bailey and Alexa Riley talked about, Leah and Mel, talk about on this week's podcast. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. It is crazy, you guys. Ooh, it's very, very interesting. And no, Tessa, you guys are not mean. I love you, and I love all the banter that goes along with it. So, sorry for that one person's opinion, but you guys are amazing. The next book that I finished on freaking the weekend, Saturday, was Husband Material by Emily Belden. I place this in women's fiction. I give it 2 stars. I give it 1 Steam fan. I read it as an ARC, and so we have Charlotte, Derek, and Brian. Charlotte is dealing with grief and starting over. It's very jumbled. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be a fun rom-com-ish sort of story, because Charlotte is on all of these like dating apps and things like that, but that's not what this story is about. The story is about her grief and about how she was married young, and now she has to get back out into the dating world because of what happened. Yeah. And it was kind of boring. There's some family secrets that were revealed. There's this... Yeah, it just didn't do it for me. I'm just not going to dwell on it. The next book that I finished was Headliners by Lucy Parker. I place this in contemporary. I give it 4.25 stars. I give it 2 Steam fans. I read it as an ARC. This comes out either today or tomorrow or this week. You guys need to go check this out. Lucy Parker is giving it to us. I loved this oh so very much. This book follows Sabrina and Nick. Sabrina is the sister of one of the characters we've already met before, but she is a television host, and she has some things that happen to her because of family secrets being revealed. And then Nick, he ends up doing something that gets him put into a bad light. He's also a TV show host, so they have to pair together and become the morning show's host pairing, you know, together. And it was so much fun. Their banter is absolutely amazing. This is an interracial romance, and I was here for it because Lucy Parker does this thing with her interracial romances where you're not focusing on the fact that they are an interracial couple. You know it, and there's little sprinkles of each one of their cultures within the book, but it's not like the main focus, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. She just posted this this picture right here for a like vision board or whatever they're called, aesthetics for the book, and this totally is the story. I love it. Love it. So good. So very good. Love it so very much. Go read the book. Go. It's enemies to lovers, rival TV host. Yes. Yes! So many. So much. And then the last book that I finished last week was Justified, which is Loveless #1 by Jay Crownover. I place this in romantic suspense. I give it 4.5 stars. I give it 3 Steam fans. I read this as a paperback. Thank you to Forever Publishing for sending it to me. I am really looking forward to reading the second book now even more. This is an introduction to the Lawtons in Loveless, Texas, I think it is. And this story follows Aspen, who was a sort of weird girl. It's how she's described in the book. So she was the weird girl that moved there from Chicago when she was in high school, and this is now her sort of grown-up story. She's become a lawyer. She ended up marrying into one of the wealthier families there in the town, and you have Case, who is now the town sheriff. However, his father was sort of a corrupt sheriff, and he was the only one that would speak to Aspen when they were in high school. But because they ended up on different sides of a case in town once they were adults, there was sort of this kind of enemies to lovers sort of feel to it. But there was also some suspenseful moments because Aspen's house ended up getting burned down and her office gets trashed, and this is sort of the mystery behind who was doing all this to her and why they were doing this to her. It was such an engaging story. I read it pretty much in one sitting, and I am really looking forward to getting to the next book because these Lawtons got me hooked at this point. As well as finding out in the author's notes that some of the characters that are seen within this book are actually members of different books from Jay Crownover. She kind of blended them in. And no, you don't have to read the other books to love these characters, but it does make me want to go and read those other books to find out if I really love those characters as much as I think I do from this book. So, what am I currently reading? I am currently going to be reading Unforgiven by Jay Crownover, which is the second book in the Loveless series, and I think that is all at this point. I do have some more arcs that from NetGalley that I'm going to be trying to get to. Baiting Him by Aurora Rose Reynolds I'm going to be trying to get to, and Boss Man Bridegroom by Megan Quinn. Accidental Arrangement by Stephie Walsh, which is a Valentine's Day novella. Super excited to get to this one. Bastard Bachelor Society by Sarah Nye. And All I Ask by Corinne Michaels. Thank you Forever for hooking me up with that copy of that arc. I'm so excited to get to that book. So, those are the books that I read last week. And what I'm currently reading. Are there any books that I have just listed off that you are super excited to hear me talk about in my currently reading? And what are your thoughts about the ones that I have already read? Have you read any of those? Let me know down in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about me. Let's do this. All the information that you guys are going to be looking for, if you need more, is down in the description box. Always check that because I chalk it up with a whole bunch of information. I also started a Ko-fi website or page, what have you. If Patreon is not your thing and it's too much of a commitment to subscribe to my Patreon, you can donate by using Ko-fi. That is greatly appreciated as well. Thank you for watching, and we will see you guys later.